morning, good afternoon, and good evening. No matter what time zone you're in, welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Sunny.
Morning, everyone. Sip and Talkers. I'm Joe.
So, I have to start with this because it was driving me crazy. I was organizing my smart home devices the other day, just trying to get things synced up, and I got hit with this massive terms of service update.
Oh, man, yeah. The dreaded endless scroll of legal text.
Exactly. Tens of thousands of words. And I actually started reading the gist of it. And it was basically saying, if you don't agree to let us collect data on your daily routine, literally down to what time you open your own fridge, you can't use the smart features anymore.
Wow. They really want to know when you're going for that midnight snack.
Right. I mean, I'm standing there holding my phone just thinking, this isn't even a choice. It's basically precise digital extortion. You're trading everyday convenience for absolute control over your private life.
Well, welcome to the daily life of the digital Leviathan.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, it's actually really funny you bring that up because that exact frustration you felt over a smart trash can or fridge is actually a perfect microcosm of the biggest geopolitical debate happening in Washington right now. It's the core of the whole China threat discussion.
Wait, what? That is a massive leap. I was just complaining about my appliances, and you're dragging us straight into geopolitics.
I know. It sounds like a stretch. But hear me out. The underlying logic is completely identical.
How so?
Because the world is finally waking up to this model. It's this idea of packaging absolute control, what they call stability maintenance, inside high convenience and economic dividends. And it's a model that is extended from their domestic minority policies and lockdowns all the way to global supply chains and our own digital infrastructure.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where you're going with this. Because when people talk about the China threat, especially here in our tech scene or in Washington, it usually devolves into this really emotional polarization, right? Or just crazy internet rumor.
Exactly. It gets very noisy very fast.
Which is why, for today's Sip and Talk, we're taking a completely different approach. We are going to strip away the ideology and the internet hype and just look at the hard facts and the international data. We really want to decode what the world is actually dealing with and what the real operational logic of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, actually is.
I love that. And honestly, to really understand how this digital Leviathan works, I think we first have to look at how people mistakenly think they can fight it.
Oh, definitely. There's this one fascinating viewpoint from a scholar that really stuck with me. They argued that Taiwan's secret weapon shouldn't just be, buying more drones or military hardware.
Right.
Instead, they said the strategy should be befriending the, quote, awake, kind Chinese people. The idea is basically to use objective truth to shatter the regime's lies. It's this very romantic Silicon Valley-style utopian dream where you just drop the truth on the internet and everyone instantly converts.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thought, but I have to push back hard on that.
Yeah.
Because we see this in Washington all the time. Distinguishing between the party and the people is totally standard diplomatic rhetoric. But realistically, dropping historical truths on people just doesn't work like magic.
Why not? I mean, if someone showed you undeniable proof that your history books were wrong, wouldn't you change your mind?
You would think so, but you're up against what researchers call a massive narrative defense system. They've built a fortress around their history. Let's actually look at the big four historical rewrites as an example of the gap between the official packaging and the reality.
Okay, yeah, let's break those down. The first one is the Great Famine, right? From 1958 to 1962.
Yep.
The official state narrative packages that whole era as the 3 years of natural disasters. But the international consensus and the historical data show that between 30 to 45 million people died. And it wasn't the weather. It was extreme policies from the Great Leap Forward.
Exactly. It's just this dark irony of achieving communism early by sending everyone to see Marx. But if you live inside that system, the natural disaster story is the only reality you're allowed to access.
Right. And then you have the second rewrite, which is Tiananmen Square in 1989. The official packaging frames it as a, quote, political turmoil that had to be handled to save the economy.
Right, whereas the truth verified by endless international media and diplomatic archives was a violent military suppression.
And the third one is way more recent. The zero COVID policy from 2020 to 2022. I remember the official messaging so clearly. They packaged the draconian lockdowns as this life-first victory. And then when they suddenly reopened, they called it a scientific pivot.
A pivot, yeah. When the epidemiological data showed that the strict lockdowns caused massive secondary disasters, people couldn't get routine medical care or food, and then that sudden reopening caused an absolute tsunami of deaths, particularly among the elderly.
but the narrative just totally papers over it. And the fourth one is Xinjiang, officially packaged as vocational training centers. But the UN Human Rights Office and countless international reports point to systemic mass detention and just outright cultural erasure.
So if you take those four realities, right, you try to use that truth to wake someone up, like that scholar suggested, the psychological reality explains why it fails. It's a classic case of cognitive dissonance.
Let's unpack that a bit, because I think people throw that term around a lot on social media.
Yeah, they do. But in this specific context, imagine being raised your entire life to believe the party is basically your parent. It's the source of your stability and identity. If someone suddenly walks up and hands you undeniable evidence of the Great Famine, your psychological defense mechanism just kicks into overdrive.
So they don't have an awakening at all?
No, not at all. The shock is too painful. So instead of accepting the truth, they view you, the person bringing the data, as a hostile actor spreading cognitive warfare. They protect their worldview by attacking the messenger.
Wow. Okay, so if the truth doesn't work because the psychological friction is too high, it's because the entire system is built on a very specific algorithm.
Exactly. An algorithm that prioritizes one single thing above everything else.
Which brings me back to the tech company analogy. Because when a normal company gives you perks like free shipping or a cool new app feature, they're doing it for user retention. They want you to have a good experience.
Right, they want you to stay.
But when a total monopoly builds an ecosystem, it's not about user experience at all. It is engineered specifically to prevent you from ever deleting your account.
That is such a perfect way to phrase it. In political science, we call that regime survival or performance legitimacy. It's basically an implicit social contract.
And what are the actual terms of that contract?
It goes like this. We will give you wealth, we will build the roads, the high-speed rail, the tech, but in exchange, you have to completely surrender your political rights.
And if we test that logic against the economy, it lines up perfectly.
Yeah.
Look at how they let people get incredibly rich for decades. But the absolute minute a private enterprise, like Alibaba, for example, gets too big and starts challenging their data or financial control, the state cracks down immediately.
Absolutely. They wiped out billions in market value without blinking. Because political control always supersedes economic growth. Always.
And you see this exact same thing in their tech sandbox. You look at the rollout of 5G, the AI integration, these massive smart cities, it's marketed to the public as the ultimate convenience.
Oh, yeah. Everything is seamless.
Right. But it's actually a digital leviathan designed to lower the cost of maintaining stability. Like, remember the bank protests?
Yes, the regional bank protests. That is the perfect example of this in action.
For those who missed it, citizens were trying to travel to protest because their bank funds were frozen, and suddenly their digital health codes, which you needed to move around during the pandemic, just inexplicably turned red.
Yeah, they were literally frozen in their tracks. You can't get on a train, you can't enter a building. The state stopped a financial protest using a health algorithm without having to deploy a single police officer.
That is terrifying. It's the ultimate account deletion prevention tool.
It really is. And there's a staggering piece of financial data that proves this is their priority. Historically, China's domestic security spending has actually surpassed its national defense budget.
Wait, really? They spend more on domestic security than national defense?
Yes. Let that sink in. They dedicate more capital to defending the regime against their own citizens than they do defending the country against foreign adversaries. That tells you everything you need to know about what they view as the real threat.
Okay, so with this colossal, impenetrable control mechanism in place, it really begs the question, how is the U.S. actually responding? Because this is where the internet noise gets really loud.
Oh, incredibly loud.
Yeah, there's this viral rumor going around lately. People are asking, did the U.S. just pass a law officially labeling the CCP as a transnational criminal organization?
All right, I've seen that all over my feed. And this is where we have to put our Washington insider hats on and look at the cold, hard mechanics of how our legislation actually works.
So what's the actual fact check on that? Is it true?
Well, it's nuanced. On June 16, 2026, the Senate did unanimously pass S-Res 444. That was a resolution condemning Xi Jinping, and it explicitly referred to the CCP as a criminal organization.
Okay, so the Senate unanimously passed it. That sounds like the rumor is true, doesn't it?
It sounds like it, but here is the catch. A resolution is a political signal. It is an expression of sentiment. It is not binding law. You can't arrest anyone based on a resolution.
Oh, okay.
Now, there is an actual bill, Representative Scott Perry introduced H.R. 8760 back in May 2026, and that bill aims to officially designate the CCP as a transnational organized crime group under RICO laws.
RICO laws. For anyone unfamiliar, those are the racketeering laws originally designed to take down the mafia, right?
Exactly. But we in the American tech and political spheres, we know how realpolitik works. Extreme bills like H.R. 8760. They often get introduced to make a massive point, but then they quietly cool off in committees, like the House Judiciary Committee.
Why do they just let it sit there if there's so much momentum?
Because of the diplomatic reality. If the U.S. government legally designates a nuclear-armed nation, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, as a literal mafia syndicate under RICO, the executive branch is left with zero diplomatic maneuvering room. It mandates sanctions that would fracture the entire global economy overnight.
So it's a massive political signal, but it's not a law you can actually use to arrest a foreign official today.
Right. It's a shot across the bow, not a structural change in international law.
Man. So if the legal avenues are stalled internationally because of realpolitik and the domestic digital surveillance makes any kind of peaceful protest impossible, how do people on the margins actually fight back?
That is the heaviest question we have to face today. Because when people are stripped of every digital and legal right, they use the only thing they still have absolute ownership over, their bodies.
Yeah. The data on the Tibetan resistance is just heartbreaking. Since 2009, over 159 Tibetans have chosen the extreme path of self-immolation.
159. It's a staggering number.
Yeah.
And it's not just historical data. We have to talk about what happened just days ago on July 2, 2026.
Right.
An unprecedented tragedy. Lob Garangzen, also known as Lobsang Palden, a 52-year-old Tibetan-American Uber driver, self-immolated outside the UN headquarters in New York. He did it to protest the new ethnic unity law. This was the first Tibetan self-immolation ever recorded on U.S. soil.
It's just devastating. And to understand what drives an individual to that point, sociologists break the oppression down into a three-dimensional model. First, there's the spiritual and cultural dimension. They're forcing kids into state-run boarding schools, wiping out the Tibetan language, and literally rewriting religious practices.
And the second dimension is survival and family. And this links directly to what they beta tested in Xinjiang. It's arbitrary detention and forced labor that physically separates family units. It breaks the community down at the foundation.
And the third dimension is bodily autonomy. This involves severe demographic engineering. And I do want to carefully note here that while the UN has raised really severe concerns regarding allegations like forced organ harvesting, the regime has this incredibly strict data blackout.
Right, which makes physical proof incredibly hard to independently verify.
Exactly. But regardless, the systemic control over bodily autonomy is absolute. Which leads me to the hardest question of this entire Sip and Talk.
What's that?
How can 1.4 billion Chinese citizens be completely blind to this? How do over 150 people set themselves on fire and it doesn't trigger a nationwide reckoning?
Because it isn't engineered blindness. You have to remember the Great Firewall and the algorithmic information cocoons we talked about. They combine that with decades of nationalist brainwashing and pure fear.
Yeah.
It creates a society that is systemically desensitized.
And if they acknowledge Tibet's pain or Xinjiang's pain, it means they have to question the legitimacy of the entire regime that provides their own stability.
Precisely. The system isolates the data, so the friction never reaches the core. Which really brings us to the final, most provocative thought of the day.
Go for it.
It is so easy for us to sit here and view Tibet and Xinjiang as these isolated, distant tragedies. But the digital leviathan that was tested there is already being exported globally. The real question for everyone to ponder isn't just how this regime treats its own people.
Right.
The question is what happens to the global order when high-tech authoritarianism mathematically proves that it can sustain itself without truth and without human rights.
If that algorithm works, other systems are going to adopt it.
Exactly. The terms of service are going to change everywhere.
Wow. That is a heavy but incredibly vital place to leave it for today's Sip and Talk. I want to remind everyone listening that our goal here isn't to drum up hate for any nation or its people. It's about understanding the mechanics of these systems so we can remain fiercely independent thinkers. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss our next conversation.
And hey, on a totally different note, if you need a way to decompress after today's intense conversation, our buddy Mickey just uploaded a brand new travel vlog to his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. It is absolutely hilarious and highly recommended.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a great palate cleanser. Definitely go check that out. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll catch you next time.